Self-Culture by Levi Dowling. Lesson 5, Unfolding the Powers of the Soul. The spirit of man is the true ego. The soul is the shadow of the ego. The physical body is the shadow of the shadow. In a sense, both soul and body are illusions, for both will pass away. The spirit is the only real, for it only abideth forever. In another sense, both the soul and the physical body are realities, for in both these are essences that are imperishable. The Christian apostle Paul referred to this enduring quality of all parts of the triune man when he wrote, "I pray God that your whole being, spirit, soul, and body, be preserved blameless in the presence of the Christ." In this sense, mystics believe in physical immortality, the age-enduring character of the body. The physical body is an entity capable of development, whether we view it as an illusion or as real. And the higher it is developed, the more tangible and powerful will the immortal essence of it become. It has ever been considered by great masters as a temple, an abiding place for the great breath, and therefore should be kept pure and developed in all its parts. The soul body is capable of being unfolded, not developed. It is thought that men usually understand what we mean by the soul body much better when we speak of it as the mind body, since it embraces all the faculties, functions, and attributes of mind. Our intellectual powers and emotions, our loves and jealousies, our hates and our desires have their origin in the soul. On this carnal plane they are manifest through the physical body, and the character of the machinery being more or less gross, the emotions are liable to partake of the nature of animalism. The spirit is the true ego, the germ formulated in the divine breath, really the seed from which perfected manhood must spring. The life of man on all planes of existence is evolved as a helper in the unfoldment of this true ego. The old catechism asks, "What is the chief end of man?" The answer is, to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. The new catechism asks, "What is the chief end of man?" The answer is, to unfold the spirit germ and bring the ego into the perfection of its kind. So while we develop the body and unfold the soul, we are perfecting the true man. Nothing is ever lost that is done to enhance the beauty of form or feature, for all such efforts add to the perfection of the spirit. True beauty is deeper than the skin and abides forever. The unfoldment of our moral, intellectual, and spiritual powers is never lost, but is so much gain in the chief work of man, the perfection of the spirit. True beauty is deeper than the skin and abides forever. The unfoldment of our moral, intellectual, and spiritual powers is never lost, but is so much gain in the chief work of man, the perfection of the spirit. We sometimes think that when a young man or woman has spent the springtime of life in study and research, in attaining intellectual power and aesthetic taste, and is then called away by death, that all is lost. I tell thee, nay, not one effort in the way of true development or unfoldment is ever wasted. The accountant of eternity puts every effort to the credit of the ego, and when the final balance sheet is struck, every effort will appear on the credit side of the ledger, and it matters not whether these efforts have, in the eyes of men, resulted in success or failure. It is the effort that counts, and not what men call results. It is indeed hard for men to judge accurately of successes in life. One may put forth ordinary efforts and achieve great success, and another may put forth efforts equally as strong and fail in every particular. And the short-visioned human critic elevates one to the throne of honor and relegates the other to the depths of degradation. But God knows and judges in justice. There are drunkards in the ditch, so-called criminals in the penitentiary, and courtesans in brothels who are immeasurably higher in the sight of God than the juries and the judges and the whitewashed men and women who have still about them the gauzy cloak of respectability and were the instruments by which these so-called failures in life have been consigned to their filthy prisons. Oh, the sham and shoddy of modern respectability. If half of the secret corruption of so-called respectable society could be revealed, the hideous glare of the red light district would pale in utter insignificance. Unfolding the powers of the soul. This is the theme of this study. We have already noted that the powers of the soul are the powers of the mind, so our work comprises the unfoldment of intellectual, moral, and spiritual strength and aesthetic taste. The soul is a body, like the physical, or perhaps it would be better to say that the physical is built according to the pattern of the soul. The soul senses correspond exactly with the physical. The soul sees, hears, smells, tastes, feels, and telepaths. Through these senses, it obtains its information, and through these senses, we must approach it in our work of unfoldment. The gateway of the soul, or the door between the soul and the physical body, must be opened up before we can intelligently enter the work of soul unfoldment. Without opening up this door, the work may go on, but when one is not conscious of what he is doing, it is indeed hard to retain an interest in his work, and he's liable to give it all up in despair. I may tell you that, separate from the body, your soul makes journeys into the astral, night after night. But if you cannot bring back to the plane of objective consciousness a knowledge of such soul flights, the whole affair is to you a myth, and you can scarcely be blamed when you say that I just imagine such things, that there are no soul activities apart from the body. So our first step in soul power unfoldment is to give you the key that will unlock the door of the veil. We speak of the door as though there were but one, and still we may recognize things by the help of either of the senses. We may see, hear, feel, smell, or taste the living ethers of astral things, and thus find an inspiration to faith. Unfolding the senses. Physical beings quite readily sense perfumes that come from the plane of the soul, and so the door of the veil may most easily be opened by the sense of smell. It is no uncommon thing for most persons to recognize odors that are not products of an earthly object. As men have passed over the burning sands of the desert, many miles from any sort of vegetation, they've been regaled with the perfumes of roses, lilies, violets, pinks, and other flowers. They've caught the peculiar odor of the pine, the eucalyptus, the acacia, the magnolia, and the cinnamon tree, though no such trees were within 100 miles of them on the earth plane. And they've asked, from whence? And physical science answers, no such perfumes were there. It is all the result of imagination. But the occult master says, those delicious perfumes were there. They came from the blooming flowers in the garden of the soul world, and from the great trees that grow on the banks of the river of life. But these perfumes come to us at any place, and we may unfold the sense of smell so that we may at will open up this gate of astral odors. Opening the gate of soul perfumes. Go into a room entirely free from substances that could possibly produce an odor or perfume. Take a comfortable position and enter the silence, according to the rules we've often given. Take one full breath, followed by a searching, purifying, or cleansing breath, according to the formula given. Put in abeyance all of the senses except that of smell. And then in mind, bring before you a particular flower or substance that you know will emit a particular odor. Rivet your attention upon this imaginary object for some minutes, and then imagine that you can smell that particular odor. And in a large percent of such efforts, you will be rewarded with a true materialization of the desired odor. But don't be discouraged if you do not succeed at first. Make other efforts, and success will come. Opening the gate of soul flavors. Next to the sense of smell, that of taste is the most sensitive. Smell and taste are so very closely related that when the nostrils are closed, taste is not perfect. The method given for unfolding the sense of smell may be used in opening the gate of soul flavors, except that all the sense avenues, except that of taste, are closed. And then by force of will, we bring the astral flavors to the taste bulbs. Opening the gate of vision. It is thought that men and women find more pleasure in the sense of vision than in all the others. People are everywhere intensely anxious to see that which is beyond the veil. And while it is much more difficult to see astral scenes than to smell astral perfumes or taste astral flavors, people have put forth such great efforts to see that clairvoyance is a nearer universal accomplishment than either of the others. However, many of the methods that have been employed to develop clairvoyant vision have been exceedingly harmful to the person in many ways, often driving the experimenter into insanity. Safe methods. There are many of them, and these we will give without describing those that are unsafe. The first question that may with propriety be asked is, why can some people see clairvoyantly while others cannot? A little study of alchemical physiology will discover the answer. The connection between the optic ganglia of the physical eye and that of the soul eye has been charged with opaque molecules, and these are mostly accumulations deposited by carnal desires and unholy emotions. Sometimes, however, they are inherited obstructions and sometimes physiological deposits, but they are so nearly all the result of the carnal desires of this or preceding lives that an occult poet was once moved to write, "No curtain hides from view the sphere Elysian, save these poor shells of half-transparent dust. All that hides the spiritual vision is pride and hate and lust." This poetic sentiment is not absolutely correct, for if it were none but the pure in heart could see clairvoyantly, while we all know that often villains and licentious people see as clearly on the lower planes of the astral as do true saints. In the light of spiritual clairvoyance, however, the sentiment of the poet is correct, for none but the pure in heart can see God or the sacred scenes of the spiritual planes. Dependent and independent vision are possible. By dependent vision, we mean lucidity produced by the help of other influences. By independent vision, we mean a lucidity attained by personal efforts alone. Drugs and hypnotism are the two most powerful helps in the production of dependent clairvoyance. But as both are dangerous and transitory in effect, they ought never to be resorted to. The only clairvoyance that is worthy of the name is that which may be required without extraneous help. And this only may be considered in this study of unfolding the power of the soul. The method. Prepare as in opening up the gates of perfume and taste. Go into the silence and take the full breath of life, which must be followed by the Master's psychic breath, so well described in other courses of instruction. Then make of thought a sharp two-edged sword which is able to pierce the dividing asunder of soul and spirit and of the joints and marrow, as Paul intimated in Hebrews 4:12. Now close the eyes tightly and look intently and you will see thousands of points of light. Select a single point and bring into service your sharp sword of thought, and extend the selected point of light into every direction. These points are but small openings in the veil that separates the photospheric light from the atmospheric light, the physical from the astral. Most people are surprised at the results of the first sitting. The veil seems to open as if by enchantment, and the whole realm of the soul spreads out like a panorama of beauty. Opening the gate of hearing. Our atmosphere is filled with sounds too refined for human ears to hear. The auditory apparatus of the human head is only able to bring the ethers up to a given rate of vibration, which enables one to hear certain crude sounds, while the sweeter melodies of nature are not heard. These sweeter sounds are astral, where the music of the spheres is produced. Whatever increases the rate of vibration of the sonoriferous ethers extends the range of hearing. So if we can find a means of doing this, we've found the key to the gate of soul hearing, or clairaudience. We know that naught increases the rate of etheric vibration but thought. And he who can potentize his thought and bring it to bear in the proper manner has accomplished his purpose. Method: find the silence and take the psychic breath as directed in opening the gate of vision. Shut off all the sense avenues except that of hearing. First, listen for the tinkling of a bell in the dreamy distance. Hold this thought until the bell really rings. And then listen for other sounds, never yielding nor giving up the thought until you have heard the sound you've idealized. In the book of the Golden Precepts, the Master gives the steps in hearing in these words: "Before thou settest thy foot upon the ladder's upper rung, the ladder of the mystic sounds, thou must hear the voice of thy inner God in 7 manners. The first is like the nightingale's sweet voice chanting a song of parting to its mate. The second comes as the sound of a silver cymbal of the Dhyanis, awakening the twinkling stars. The third is like the plaint melody of the ocean sprite imprisoned in a shell. The fourth is a sweet melody like the chant of Veena, an ancient musical instrument like the lute. The fifth is like the shrill sound of a bamboo flute, which suddenly changes into the sixth, which resembles the trumpet blast. The seventh is like a roll of distant thunder, which swallows all the other sounds. Then sounds die away and are heard no more forever." Mark, this realm of the soundless sound is the plane of the spirit, where the help of senses is never required. Here are the ethers of universal knowledge, where men know without hearing, seeing, feeling, smelling, or tasting. Opening the gate of touch. This sense enables one to gain information by coming in contact with objects. The sentient nerves extend to all parts of the body, and everyone is provided with a receiving apparatus so exceedingly sensitive that it is able to recognize the slightest movements of the ethers. In highly organized persons, the breath of a passing angel or of certain astral entities is perceptibly felt. This delicate sense enables one to gather a wonderful fund of information that is often ascribed to the higher sense of intuition. When this sense is properly unfolded, a vast range of psychic knowledge may be brought under the dominion of the individual. Method of unfoldment. The first steps in the unfoldment of each sense is the same. When the silence has been reached, concentrate attention upon some particular part of the body. The forehead, cheek, lips, and back of hand are supersensitive. And then will that this part shall become more sensitive. Continue this willing for a few moments, and then relax every muscle of the body. Just wait in an expectant attitude and note impressions. A passing astral form may fan the part, or it may breathe upon the part, and you feel as though you were sitting in a draft of air. When you've succeeded in feeling impressions on the selected part, then choose another part. If you've succeeded in putting all the other senses in abeyance for the time being, you're pretty sure to receive impressions at the very first sitting. These impressions may not always be pleasurable, for we must know that the astral world is full of entities of all kinds, good, bad, and indifferent. And until one has become a master of sensation and can put his aura in a condition of safety so that evil influences cannot penetrate it, he is liable to be annoyed with ungodly raps and uncanny brushings by unpleasant forces. Importance of the sense of touch. It is indeed hard to overestimate it. It is so near akin to the higher sense of intuition that when it is well unfolded, one seems to know almost all things without learning them in the usual way. And this is an accomplishment that is within the reach of everybody. The higher work of unfolding soul powers will be considered in our next lesson. In this lesson, we've simply revealed the 5 keys to enable one to open up the gates of the soul. Through these doors, everyone should be able to come into the presence of his own soul, where he may learn of its qualities and attributes, and be prepared to do much in the way of unfolding them. He who can recognize his own soul in its own domain has the key to all power in heaven and on earth.